Michael, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
You are a philosopher of science. Could you just tell us briefly, what is philosophy of science?
Yes, well, I like to say I'm a historian and philosopher of science. I mean, I'm trained as a philosopher. That's to say, I'm trained on, the greats, Plato and Aristotle and Descartes and Locke, Berkeley, Hume and all of that. So as a philosopher, I always like to think philosophy is sort of like a second order subject. One does science, let's say biology, or one does politics, or dare I say, one does theology or religion. And then the philosopher comes along and says, now, why are people disagreeing about certain aspects? Why, for instance, to take an example, why is it okay in biology to say the function of the nose is to smell, but if in astronomy you said the function of the moon is, well, what? To light the way home for drunken philosophers. It's a joke. And so a philosopher says, now what's going on here? Why is it that biologists are allowed to use this kind of language, but astronomers aren't? So it's not a scientific question. I'm not a scientist, but I'm looking at it. Obviously, let's say something like theology, for instance. Somebody on one side says, well, I believe in God because I believe in the designer. I just can't believe that something with hands and teeth and eyes could be just chance. There has to be, as I like to say, the eye, there has to be a great optician in the sky. And another person comes along and says, oh, I'm not so sure about that. What about all the things that go wrong? What about, women in childbirth? If there's a designer, how the hell was it that, the designer didn't do a better job of childbirth? Obviously because the designer was a man, but you know what I mean. Why don't you think there are two designers or three designers or something like that? Now, I see the job of the philosopher. I'm not a theologian, at least not qua philosopher. I might be a Christian, I might not be. But qua philosopher, what I'm doing is trying to look at this sort of overall thing and trying to make sense of why it is that you get these disagreements.
Can I ask, do some scientists feel that you philosophers of science and historians of science are just getting in the way? Because after all, they are purely objective. They don't have philosophical assumptions they bring to the discipline. They're not influenced by historical force.
Right. And yes. And the Prime Minister of Australia's got each and every one of us our welfare at heart. Yeah, right. I mean, give me a break. I mean, just not true, is it? I mean, the point is that scientists put their pants on one leg at a time, just like the rest of us. Scientists have, families who nag at them. Scientists are, watch the, rugby just like everybody else. I mean, and some scientists even go to church. Others don't. No, I mean, I think that clearly at one level, science is about the real world. Science is an attempt to understand the real world. But at the same time, everything that one does is a matter of interpretation and conceptual thinking.
Does science therefore have a worldview it brings to the project akin to a faith worldview?
I think what I would want to say is that science then adopts a particular kind of methodology, a naturalistic methodology of trying to understand through laws and things of this nature, which are universally scientific. I mean, people sometimes say methodological atheism, and I think that might be a good way to put it. I mean, notice the very key word methodological rather than metaphysical. So at that level, I think, yes, you do. I mean, obviously, then you have certain basic theories like the Big Bang theory or evolutionary theory or things of this nature, which by and large, scientists universally accept. So you could certainly say this is a worldview. Now, does one want to say that this is a worldview akin to a religious view? I suppose the answer is yes and no. I mean, my own personal feeling is that, sure, I mean, at some level, these are worldviews, but I'm not sure I want to see them as parallel worldviews, because that starts to put you already into a conflict issue. Which one are you going to take? I mean, I'm much more comfortable with that kind of worldview, if you like, where basically they're not trying to do the same thing. I mean, I've been very influenced by the neo-orthodox people like Langdon Gilkey, who used to say, you know, that science asks one sort of question, religion asks another sort of question. You know, what did you do yesterday? Well, we went to the park and we had sandwiches and Coke, and then we got caught in a traffic jam. What did you do yesterday? The kids and I fixed a picnic and took my wife to the park to show her how much we loved her on our birthday. Two completely different answers, not clashing at all.